Hey gang, it's Mr. Cassidy with another science vid. And this week I'm in my greenhouse. I'm not in the storage closet at Jefferson, so Mr. Bones isn't with us this week. Instead, I got Honey the Sloth. This is Honey, and she's helping me out this week. And we're talking about cougars and other kitties. And this was Cyrus's idea, so I want to thank Cyrus for the suggestion to do one on cougars. This is really fun. So we're going to talk a lot about mountain lions, which is another name for cougars, and then we're going to talk a little bit about jaguars. There's a bobcat there. There's a lion right in the middle, and then here's some just cute photos of kitties there at the bottom. And it's neat because last week we talked about wolves and then dogs. And this week we're going to talk about cats, basically. So we got dogs and cats covered. So here's some cougar cat facts. There's a range map there in the corner, in the upper left corner. So cougars go all the way from almost Alaska down through Mexico into South America. These things are everywhere in North and South America. Well, almost everywhere, but there are a lot of places. Males can be up to 150 pounds. That's about as big as I am. They can get to be 9 feet long. That's about as tall as, or that's about the distance from our floor to our ceiling in our classroom. And they can jump to up to 20 feet. So that's about from, like, if you walk into our classroom, that's like jumping from there all the way into the cozy corner where the blankets are and the blocks. It's about how far these cougars can jump. Super far. And the females are a little bit smaller, and they live to be about 10 to 20 years. So it's about the same lifespan as a house cat. And so remember last week we were talking about how wolves live in packs. They're social animals. They live together and they hunt together. They hunt cooperatively. Well, cougars and most cats in general are solitary. They don't live in packs. They live by themselves, except like a mama cougar when she's having her kittens. Otherwise, they're just kind of living alone. And because of that, they don't hunt together in a group. They just hunt by themselves. And they're what's known as ambush predators. So they kind of just sit and wait for something to walk by, and then they pounce on it. Or they wait in a tree, like this cougar's waiting in a tree, and it'll jump from a tree down onto something. Unlike wolves or orcas that hunt together in a big group, because they're social animals and they hunt cooperatively in a team. But most most cats are solitary, but not all. We'll talk about this later. Okay, and here's a great example of an ambush. This is ambush hunting. We got to watch a little ad first. Ooh, French fries, yum.
And your friend says they don't want fries. Get them the fries.
Yeah, so this is going to be a jaguar
Your fries.
and a caiman. And caimans are like little alligators down in Central and South America. So here's a jaguar just waiting in the bushes there above a river. Oh, what's he see? Oh, gonna get a better look. Oh, you might not want to watch this, honey. It's a little scary. Here, just tuck you away. There he goes. Oh my gosh. Oh, they got him. They got the caiman.
He's the top predator in a land of predators. The
Wow.
best of the best.
Wow. Can you believe it? That was an awesome example of ambush hunting. So the jaguar was just waiting there, and then the caiman came cruising by, and it just jumped right on him. The caiman never saw him coming. Sorry I had to see that, honey. I know that's a little scary. Okay, so we're going to be detectives for the next couple of slides. And I want to look at the difference in faces of all these different animals. Okay, now we got a wolf over here on the right. This is a pronghorn antelope in the middle, and this is a cheetah on the left. Okay, now um, think about how these two animals here on the right hunt or try to escape being hunted. So we were talking about how wolves can chase the caribou or the wolves over long distances, and they can both run for a long time. And the cheetahs, they don't run for a very long time. Cheetahs are really fast, but they can only run for like, uh, 20 or 30 seconds, but they can run super, super fast for those 20 or 30 seconds. Whereas wolves, caribou, and elk, they can run for hours and hours. Not really that fast, but they can go for a really long time. And if we look at the skulls of these different animals, these same animals. This is a cheetah skull. Look at how short its nose is. It just doesn't have a lot of space where its nose is. It's kind of wide, but short. Look at these skulls over here. This is the antelope. It's got this long area here where their nasal cavities are. And same with the wolves. Look at got these long areas where the nose is. And this is has part of the reason why they're able to run long periods of time. Not very fast, but they can run for a long time. And part of that is because they can take in a lot of oxygen and just kind of keep running, keep going for long distances. Whereas the cheetah over here, it can't run for very long, and it takes in just short bursts of oxygen, um, but it kind of uses them up real quick, and then that's it. It can only run for about 20 or 30 seconds, and then it just gets exhausted. But it can run super fast for those 20 or 30 seconds. So it's sitting there waiting, sees an animal it wants to eat come walking by, and then it pounces on it, and it can chase it for just a little bit before it runs out of gas. And that's you can see that sort of uh, in the way that their skulls are designed. They just like can't run for very long because they just can't bring in that much oxygen. Um, and that's a lot different than how wolves or antelope or elk are put together. Um, and also, what's interesting about the cheetah skull is it doesn't have very many molars. You see that? It's got the big fangs up there, the canines, big sharp teeth up front for eating meat. But look at it's only got 2 or 3 molars back there. And look at wolves, more molars, and then antelope, tons of molars back there, and not really any sharp teeth. So antelope just mostly eat grass and plants, right? And so they're just like chewing on plants a lot, and they're using those back teeth, those molars, and so it needs a lot of space in their mouths for all those molars. And wolves, they eat a lot of meat, but they also can eat plants, and so they have a few more molars than cats do. Cats just pretty much eat meat. They just hunt animals pretty much. Um, and so they just have those big sharp teeth up front, and then not much in the way of molars in the back. So they have really small mouths and kind of small faces in general. If you think of a cat's face, they kind of have smushed faces, and that's because of that small nose and not very many teeth. And the teeth that are in there are really sharp for eating meat and tearing up flesh. And so because of this, because cougars and other cats just eat meat pretty much, um, they have to have really sharp teeth. They have to have they have to be very careful not to break those teeth because that's the only way it knows how to eat is to hunt. It doesn't really scavenge already dead animals. It doesn't eat plants. It just pretty much hunts and eats the meat that it catches. And so it's very important that their teeth stay sharp and that their teeth don't break, because otherwise they can go hungry. And here's another really cool thing about cougars. Um, their teeth have to stay sharp. We talked about that, and their claws also have to stay really sharp too. And so, if you ever see a cougar track or any other cat track in the sand or the snow, you'll see that they don't. You don't see their claws. See at the top of the print here, there's no claws in the sand. That's because their claws are retractable. It means they can go back uh, from being in front of their toes back to being behind their toes. Kind of like Wolverine's claws, like in X-Men. He can retract his claws so that you don't see him most of the time. And that's exactly what cougars and other cats do. Most of the time, their claws are back in their paws, but when it's time to hunt, then they can move the claws forward. And if you have a cat, they do the same thing. If you're holding their paw, you can see that their claws aren't there on top of their paws. But if you press the paw, you'll see that their claws will come out, and they're really sharp. So this is another way that cougars and other cats keep their hunting tools, their claws, really sharp. Is because they're not always hitting the ground and scraping them and kind of making them dull. They only have the claws out when they're in action mode, basically. And so here's a type of dog print, either a wolf or a dog or a fox. They always show their claws. They cannot retract their claws. So if you ever see a dog print in the mud or something, you'll always see that the claws show up. And here's some other cougar sign. If you're out in the woods walking around, cougars will scratch trees like this, and they'll mark them. I don't know if you've ever smelled like a cat's spray, but it's kind of gross. It stinks pretty bad. But cougars do that too. They'll scratch a tree with their claws, and then they'll spray it even. And this lets other cougars know that this is their territory and don't come in my zone. This is the boundary pal, kind of like wolves do. Wolves and dogs mark their territory. And then here's some cougar poop over here. It's kind of short and blocky, like in these little sections. And if it's really dark like that, like dark brown or black, it means it's got a lot of protein in it. It means they've been eating a lot of meat. Okay, so remember how I said that all cougars and most cats are solitary? That's true pretty much for all cats except the African lion. African lions live in what's known as prides. This is a pride of lions. So this is one male there in the middle. It's kind of got longer hair in that mane, and a bunch of females. And they live in a group, and they kind of hunt together, and um, they're pretty much the only types of cats in the world that live in a big group. All other types of cats, cougars, jaguars, basically live alone. And remember how I said that all wolves and dogs and coyotes and stuff live in groups? Well, that's not entirely true. The Arctic fox lives alone. The Arctic fox is solitary. So there's exceptions to both these rules, which is cool. There's a lot of things in nature where it's hard to say 100% completely, totally, everything's like this. There's always exceptions. So here it is. The Arctic fox is a in the dog family, and they live alone. Okay, now this is pretty wild. So here's a jaguar hanging out up in a tree. Look at how beautiful and how striking that pattern is on their fur. I mean, that doesn't seem like it'd be very good camouflage. It's just so bright and beautiful. How is this thing able to be an ambush predator and just like wait around for like a little alligator to swim by or a deer to walk by? How does the prey not see him? Well, look at the jaguar in all of these different habitats. It's pretty cryptic. It's pretty good camouflage. Here's a jaguar on some like leaves there in the upper left. Here's a jaguar in the jungle with some dappled light, some light coming through the leaves. It's just amazing how well camouflaged these jaguars are for being such a a boldly patterned creature. It's incredible how well they blend into all these different zones. It's kind of that like shadow and light combination of their fur, where they got the black bits, that's the shadow, and then the blonde parts are the light. Okay, so jaguars were missing. They were hunted out of the United States for a long time. They've been gone for about 50 years, but they're starting to come back. Um, Here's a map down here in the corner for the range of the jaguar. They're down in South America, up through Central America, Mexico, and they just barely get into Arizona. And this just started happening a few years ago. And so researchers, scientists use these game cameras that detect motion and then take a photo. And here's one of those photos right here above my head. There's a jaguar. It heard the little click of the camera and then it turned its head, and there's its eyes lighting up in the flash of the camera. And so they're starting to see jaguars in Arizona again, which is pretty cool. And researchers are able to tell individuals apart. See these patterns here on the fur? Every cougar is a little bit different. It's like a fingerprint. So researchers they get to know like individual jaguars um, by the pattern on their fur. I read somewhere that they called one jaguar Betty Boop because one of the little black spots looked like this is Betty Boop. She's an old cartoon character. You can kind of see like this one here kind of looks like Betty Boop. They're all very Betty Boop esque, but apparently this one jaguar had a very definitive Betty Boop pattern on its fur, and that's what the scientists called that jaguar. I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, look at this beauty here. This is a jaguar that's all black. This one is like almost entirely black. This one's pretty black. You can still see some of the patterns, some of those spots uh, uh, on its back there and on its legs. Um, and it looks like a black panther. It's a little bit different than a black panther. Those are in Africa. These ones are in the Americas. But this is just a jaguar that's got black fur, kind of like those black wolves we saw last week. This is a black jaguar. Look at how beautiful they are. Okay, we're going to quickly talk about a couple other types of cougars or cats around the world, and then get going. So this is a Siberian tiger. This is the biggest cat in the world. So tigers are over there in India and Asia. There's 9 different tiger subspecies. So all of them a little bit different. 3 of those are extinct now because they got hunted out by humans. So there's 6 different tiger subspecies left. And this is the biggest one of them all, the Siberian tiger. And they can hunt in really deep snow. They can run through snow. They have those big paws there. They're like big snowshoes. And they can be over 700 pounds. 700 pounds. That's just mind-blowing. And 10 feet long. So that's a foot longer than the cougars we were talking about earlier. 10 foot long. And here's the range of the tigers. They have that beautiful striped pattern. There's some north of India. This is India. And then all throughout India. And then the ones in Siberia are up in Russia, up here in the north. So, and then real quick, some extinct cats of the Ice Age. So we talked a little bit about a couple of these when we were talking about the mastodons and the woolly mammoths a few weeks ago. So there's the American lion. We had a lion in the United States way back when in the Ice Age. It was even bigger than the African lion. And then we had the saber-toothed cat with the really big canines that went down below its mouth. And this is a scimitar cat. A scimitar is a type of sword. This is the scimitar cat. Oh, with its little kits right there. Oh, and it had really big teeth too. Not as big as the saber-tooth, but still really giant. And that's it. There's a cute photo of a kitty there, waving goodbye. Thanks for watching, Wolves. I hope you learned a lot and had fun watching. And we'll see everybody later during a Google Meet. And this is Mr. Casty and Honey the Sloth signing out.